So, picture this. She lost her entire world as a kid, and he stepped in to become her everything. Now they're roommates, and that cozy family vibe has suddenly got a whole lot of voltage. One near drowning, one heroic rescue, and one kiss that was so close you could taste it. And suddenly the just friends line has been completely torched. He drops the line, "I won't let you go." And she's left wondering if he's her bodyguard or if this is something way, way hotter. We're talking secrets, sparks of jealousy, and a connection that's about to blow its cover. Welcome to the drama. This is Affectionate Intruder. She actually gets the guts to ask about them being a thing, but his answer is a brutal, soul-crushing, absolutely not. A cold little smirk plays on his lips when she pushes, asking, "But what if?" And his comeback is a total gut punch. If it's even a possibility, they can never see each other again. Ouch. Now, Ahan's stomach is doing backflips as she stares at her college admission results. The idea of letting her guardians down is bad, but disappointing Chio? That's a whole new level of hell. Her brain rewinds 11 years to that nightmare accident that left a 9-year-old her standing all alone in a house that was suddenly silent. Ahan knows the only reason she made it was because of the family next door, so she shoves her anxiety down, takes a deep breath, and her finger finally clicks the mouse. Her eyes go wide, like she can't even process what she's seeing. The word pass is practically glowing on the screen. A strangled sob rips out of her as she flies out the door, screaming their names in pure, chaotic happiness. Her victory cry literally shatters the morning quiet. She got in. Her guardians basically explode with joy. Her uncle just starts bawling on the spot. But even buried in all their praise, Ahan's eyes are scanning the room for one person. Chio. A low, smooth voice cuts through the noise right behind her. "Looking for me?" Ahan spins around, but before she can even get a word out, Ahan knows the only reason she made it was because of the family next door, so she shoves her anxiety down. The idea of letting her guardians down is bad, but disappointing Chio? That's a whole new level of hell. To him finding a tiny, broken Ahan who thought her world had ended. Young Chio, with fire in his eyes, made a vow to stay with her forever, promising a love deeper than any parents, whispering to a trembling little girl, "It's gonna be okay." And from that night on, he was her rock. His parents took her in, his mom gently telling Ahan to call her mom. Her uncle just starts bawling on the spot. But even buried in all their praise, Ahan's eyes are scanning the room for one person. Chio. They knew she'd been a nervous wreck. They lead her inside, and Ahan just stops dead. There's a feast fit for a queen and a brand new, perfectly decorated room waiting for her. All her fears about being a burden just melt away under their completely over-the-top, 5-star affection. Seriously, this family's love is a full-on assault. At the celebration dinner, Chio just waves off Ahan's thank yous, smugly acting like he's the only reason she passed. His teasing reminds her of when he was in the military. He came home on leave and laid down this ridiculous order. She had to get into his college department because he was supposedly too shy to go back to school by himself. Yeah, right. Such a classic romance manhwa plot. Anyway, Chio's dad cuts in, telling Ahan to stop talking nonsense, insisting she's not a burden. She's their daughter, period. Hit with a tidal wave of feels, Ahan just cries and thanks him. Her guilt evaporates, replaced by a sudden, ravenous hunger. She starts inhaling her food, which totally weirds Chio out. He then spots some new boxes, pointing out that her room is getting yet another makeover. But then, Chio's mom's whole vibe shifts. Her smile vanishes as she grabs Ahan's hand, her voice low as she promises they'll always thought of her as their own. And just as Ahan's heart is about to burst with joy, his mom hits her with a quiet, devastating apology, completely sideswiping Ahan as her hopeful smile just evaporates off her face. Then comes the real gut punch. His parents are leaving tomorrow. Grandma's not doing well, so they have to go. In a total daze, Ahan creeps into Chio's room, and her stomach just plummets. His bags are already packed, sitting there like little coffins. The silence between them is thick enough to choke on. And girl, being alone with him right now feels like walking on glass. Ahan squeaks out a question about school, but Chio's reply is so dismissive, his eyes glued to his phone. It feels like a slap. He promised times they'd go together. And now his words are just empty air, devastating apology. Completely sideswiping Ahan as her hopeful smile just evaporates off her face. But then, Chio's mom's whole vibe shifts. Her smile vanishes as she grabs Ahan's hand, her voice low as she promises they'll. He leans in, his voice a low, challenging purr, asking if she's bummed he's leaving. But before she can even breathe, he drops the real payload. Does she want to live with him? Chio's gaze is pure steel. He knows she can't say it. My girl Ahan has never been taught how to ask for what she wants. She tries to let him off the hook, but Chio's voice drops 10 degrees. He takes her non-answer as an answer, patting her head with a formal little apology that feels colder than a morgue slab. Ahan's entire world just shatters. He drops the real payload. Does she want to live with him? Chio's gaze is pure steel. He knows she can't say it. Is she going to be all alone again? The trauma reel starts playing in her head, flashing back to all those cold, lonely nights. He mumbles something about them still being family, but her heart is screaming, asterisk, no. Asterisk, if he leaves, she's not family, she's just abandoned. In a blind panic, Ahan's hand shoots out and snags his sleeve, a desperate I didn't mean it tumbling from her lips. She confesses she only stayed quiet because she felt so damn hopeless, like her feelings were just static. Then, gathering every last shred of courage, she finally says it. The one thing she wants more than anything. To live with him. The second the words are out, Ahan's bravery nopes right out of there. Sure, he's sick of her drama, but then Chio's hand cups her face, his voice impossibly soft as he praises her for finally using her words. He tells her it's okay to be selfish, that he's totally fine with it. And just as her heart turns to goo, he leans in and scolds her for making everyone worry. And poof, any thought of him being mature is gone with the wind. A sly little smirk plays on Chio's lips as he declares that since his little one has spoken, his hands are tied. Ahan, looking like a confused puppy, has no idea what he's talking about. Chio just tells her she'll find out tomorrow, leaving her completely in the dark. The next morning, Chio's mom is all smiles, announcing she heard Ahan wanted to live with Chio. Chio's mom is practically glowing, telling a shell-shocked Ahan how thrilled they are that she agreed to manage their little headache. As they drive off, his parents literally give her permission to kick Chio to the curb if he acts up. The second their car is gone, leaving her completely in the dark. The next morning, Chio's mom is all smiles, announcing she heard Ahan wanted to live with Chio. Is she going to be all alone again? The trauma reel starts playing in her head, flashing back to all those cold, lonely nights, his stormy gray eyes practically sparkling with trouble. Looking down at her, he completely flips the script on this whole romance manhwa setup, dropping the bomb that from now on, she's the one who has to take care of times him asterisk. And for Ahan, the game just changed. Home was a word in a language she didn't speak. All she could picture was the warmth radiating from Chio's family, a total 180 from the empty, cold shell of her own past. A void so deep she figured it was a permanent fixture in her soul. And just then, his voice cuts through the static of her memories. With this little half-smile that spelled trouble, he drops the bomb that he's looking forward to being her roommate. Ahan's brain short-circuits, and she's all, "Excuse me, what did you just say?" But our boy Chio coolly twists her words into a pretzel, reminding her that times she's times the one who brought up living together. And when she sputters out that she meant with his times parents asterisk, that damn smirk of his widens into a full-blown grin. He purrs that he just assumed she couldn't stand the thought of being separated from him. He drops the bomb that he's looking forward to being her roommate. Ahan's brain short-circuits, and she's all, "Excuse me, what did you just say?" But our boy Chio, he can just picture his dad's booming approval. Ecstatic that Ahan wouldn't be by herself, his eyes narrow as he drops the million-dollar question. "You got a guy in there or something?" Ahan breaks into a cold sweat, stammering that it's totally not what he thinks. But Chio just closes the gap between them, telling her she's now reached peak levels of suspicious. He reminds her that this door has been a forbidden zone for him since middle school, and that he's been patiently waiting for an invitation that never materialized. He murmurs about how his feelings are hurt, and just then, the gate groans open. In a voice that could melt butter, he explains it's so she doesn't have to feel the same pain. Ahan's just staring, completely bewildered, and can only ask what on earth he's talking about. His gaze drifts right past her and into the room, which is basically a physical manifestation of loneliness. He's met with nothing but stark, white walls, a place that feels hauntingly similar to Ahan herself. Chio's expression just hardens, and he states that if she seriously thinks this empty shell of a room is perfectly fine, then one of them has a major problem. He reminds her that this isn't the girl he grew up with. Stunned, she flashes back to her chaotic upbringing and just explains that she threw out anything not worth keeping, finishing with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. His gaze immediately softens at that fragile smile, but her past isn't his focus, her future is. He tells her it's fine if the room is a blank canvas, totally forgetting why he even forced his way in. Ahan immediately tries to pivot, asking why he'd want to live in a shoebox like this anyway. She flashes back to her chaotic upbringing and just explains that she threw out anything not worth keeping, finishing with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. He explains it's so she doesn't have to feel the same pain. Ahan's just staring, completely bewildered, and can only ask what on earth he's talking about. Questioning his plan to extend his leave of absence from school, he just watches her scramble, his patience wearing dangerously thin. Stunned, Ahan blurts out what his parents would think about this whole arrangement. Chio just smirks, coolly pointing out that he never said they were against it. She just made that assumption all on her own. With a casual confidence that completely disarms her, he reveals they're actually thrilled with the idea of them staying together. He can just picture his dad's booming approval, ecstatic that Ahan wouldn't be by herself, While his mom was already fussing over her comfort. Knowing his parents like the back of his hand, Chio had expected this exact reaction, a little thought he keeps tucked away for himself. Chio gently steers the shell-shocked Ahon forward, starting to lay out the practical side of things. She just made that assumption all on her own. With a casual confidence that completely disarms her, he reveals they're actually thrilled with the idea of them staying together. Ahon's doubt is practically screaming from her face. He pauses in front of a closed door, mentioning it used to be his cousin's old room. With a faint creak, he swings it open and casually asks if this one would work for her, revealing the absolutely incredible space inside. Ahon lets out a little gasp, her eyes going wide as saucers. The room is spacious, totally immaculate, and already furnished with bookshelves, a proper desk, and a bed that looks like a fluffy cloud. It's way more than she ever could have imagined, and a soft wow just slips past her lips. Ahon lets out a little gasp, her eyes going wide as saucers. The room is spacious, totally immaculate, and already furnished with bookshelves. A flash of some kid on TV biting into a fake one pops into his head. But instead of giving it a taste test, he whips his focus back to Ahon, demanding to know what's going on in that pretty little head of hers. The sudden question completely short-circuits her brain, leaving her gaping like a fish. All she can think is, who the hell just decides to bite a metal? With a low chuckle that could melt butter, Chio just shrugs, saying he was curious, before plopping down in her desk chair like he owns the place. Sucking in a breath for courage, Ahon finally spits it out. He can't live here. She insists on how messed up the whole situation looks, but he just leans back, cool as a cucumber, promising no one will get the wrong idea. He's practically forcing her to say the quiet part out loud. They're adults, in the same college department. What if someone sees us? She pleads, explaining that since they aren't times actually times related, the whole thing is a recipe for a 5-alarm fire of awkwardness. But Chio just stretches back, a lazy, infuriating smirk playing on his lips, and says he times won't be uncomfortable one bit. But he just leans back, cool as a cucumber, promising no one will get the wrong idea. He's practically forcing her to say the quiet part out loud. They're adults, in the same college department. Her eyes are glued, absolutely locked on the stunning landscape of his back as he peels his shirt off, acting like it's the most normal thing in the world. They should never see each other again. His words were absolute, a clean cut through all her confusion, revealing the one, glaring truth. If they were real family, he would never, ever have said something like that. With his gaze boring into her, practically pinning her to the wall, Chio demands her final answer. Ahon's hands ball into tight fists at her sides as she whispers an apology, insisting she just can't do it. Looking seriously pissed, he pinches the bridge of his nose, but before he can unleash whatever argument is brewing, she throws out a desperate lifeline. She'll stay, but only until she can find a new place. Chio glances at her one sad-looking bag and asks if she's cool with him, unpacking his stuff right next door. After she mumbles that her bigger boxes are still at the old place, he just nods and tells her he'll let her get to it. The second that door clicks shut, full-blown panic mode activated. My girl literally slides down the wall, completely overwhelmed, wondering how in the hell she just agreed to this insane living arrangement. Ahon's mind was a chaotic mess, caught in the trap of Chio's brutal words, "Let's never see each other again." The meaning behind them was undeniable. It completely shattered the fragile family fantasy they'd been living in. But she couldn't go back on her word now. The poor guy literally had nowhere else to go. She clung to the paper-thin hope that he'd find his own place. And fast. For now, she'd just have to play house and pretend this was all perfectly normal. Pasting on a bright, totally fake smile, Ahon peeks into Chio's new room, ready to offer help like the main character in some wholesome story, not the spicy romance manhwa this was turning into. Is there anything I can? The words die on her tongue. She freezes solid, her face erupting in a blush so hot it could start a fire. Her eyes are glued, absolutely locked on the stunning landscape of his back as he peels his shirt off, acting like it's the most normal thing in the world. Taking a shaky step into his room, Ahon tries to offer help again, but the words just won't come out. She's completely paralyzed, her gaze stuck on the masterpiece that is Chio's back. He turns, not even a little fazed by her deer-in-the-headlights expression, and coolly asks what's up, leaving her to stammer out some pathetic apology. Chio's expression softened, a flicker of genuine concern in his eyes as he watched her, practically vibrating with anxiety. The shirt was already off, and in one fluid, impossibly smooth motion, he closed the distance between them, and then he pulled Ahon into his arms. "Be careful," he murmured, his breath warm against her hair as he held her flush against his very bare, very solid chest. My girl, completely blindsided, felt a full-body fever take over. "So, what's the problem?" he pushed, his voice dropping into that low gear that always made her insides do a little flip. She, of course, started stammering. Well, I was just thinking maybe I..." Couldn't help but stare. With her eyes glued to the floor, Chio dangled a shirt in front of him, a wicked little smirk tugging at his lips. Why are you... Not wearing clothes. Ahan squeaked out, her voice a total mouse fart. He just turned, that damn smirk of his getting bigger. Well, you're the one who barged in without knocking, he shot back. And bam, Ahan's face went from pink to a full-on 5-alarm fire. While she was tripping over her own tongue trying to apologize, Chio, smooth as ever, just said he was a little chilly and swapping shirts. Yeah, right. And bless her naive heart, Ahan totally bought it. She felt this wave of guilt, thinking he was freezing his perfectly sculpted buns off because of her. Chio slowly pulled the shirt over that masterpiece of a torso, clearly getting a kick out of her meltdown. Then he casually asks why she's so freaked out. He even brought up their old beach trips, as if seeing him half naked was no big deal. But her brain was screaming, different. And then, like a scene from a spicy romance manhwa, he suddenly snatched her wrist. His voice went all deep and gravelly. Are we different now? And Ahan, flustered as hell, immediately choked out a, no, of course not. What's different? But dude, the temperature in the room dropped like 20 degrees as Chio's face went stony, and he repeated her words back to her, real slow. Panicking, she scrambled for an excuse, sputtering that what she times meant times was. His body had, changed. You know, since they were kids. While Chio just stared her down, Ahan, completely short-circuiting, blurted out just times how times different he looked, admitting it was her first time, seeing a grown man's everything. Her face exploded in flames. Desperate to escape, she started babbling about changing the damn blanket. Chio, fighting back a smirk that said, I know exactly what you're thinking, just offered to do the laundry himself. As he walked out, you could hear him chuckle. My girl was so mortified she face-planted into a pillow, her entire body quaking with embarrassment. And just outside the Chio just burst out laughing, the sound bouncing off the walls. And get this, he thought her total meltdown was adorable, a stupidly charming smirk plastered on his face, as he called her his clumsy little sister before, you know, casually starting a load of laundry. Then, this massive thud practically shakes the apartment, making Ahan jump out of her skin. She spins around to see Chio, carrying a whole-ass couch like it's a bag of groceries. My girl is just staring, completely dumbfounded, because she totally recognizes it from his parents' house. She's like, why would you haul all this stuff over for a temporary stay? And he, cool as a cucumber, just says his mom told him to grab whatever he needed. Yeah, temporary. He was clearly moving in for good, so when Ahan tried to suggest where the TV should go, Chio shut her down immediately, telling her not to even think about helping. His excuse? It'd be a pain in the ass if she got hurt. That blunt, caveman protectiveness sent her heart into overdrive, leaving her completely tongue-tied. It's a classic move, straight out of a top-tier romance manhwa. All she could do was watch him move, all muscle and easy grace, setting everything up himself. And just like that, their place started to feel like a real home, which, naturally, made Ahan start to tremble. That old, familiar fear started creeping in. Her whole philosophy was simple: keep your heart locked up tight. If you don't have anything, you can't lose anything, right? The soft click of her bedroom door shutting made Chio pause mid-lift. A little flicker of something. Maybe concern? Crossing his face. Panicking, she scrambled for an excuse, sputtering that what she times meant times was. His body had, changed. You know, since they were kids. She had fought this whole cohabitation thing so hard, absolutely terrified of him seeing her at her lowest, all weak and pathetic. And right on cue, a crappy old memory decided to pop up. It was her as a little kid, sick as a dog, begging her mom not to go. But her mom had to leave to take her brother to some competition. Yeah, temporary. He was clearly moving in for good, so when Ahan tried to suggest where the TV should go, Chio shut her down immediately, telling her not to even think about helping. It just softened as she stroked Ahan's hair, swearing up and down that both of her kids were precious to her. Then she asked the million-dollar question, what she wanted. And little Ahan, bless her heart, perked right up and demanded cake, declaring it was a great day because her brother was obviously going to win a gold medal. Then, in that fuzzy logic of dreams, the scene shifted. Now she was a kid again, hooking pinkies with her aunt, asking her to promise something. And then bam. She jolted awake. The same damn nightmare, a total classic, stealing her breath away. Like, the day had started out so perfect. You know? Chio snagged a gold medal, and the cake she'd been craving finally showed up. But of course, that sweet moment just had to shatter into a million pieces, replaced by the horror movie replay of the crash-twisted metal. That poor, innocent cake splattered everywhere. A total gut punch. And then comes the guilt trip. My girl starts spiraling, wondering if her craving for a stupid cake was really the domino that knocked her whole world down. Like, was her one little I want cake moment enough to just delete her entire family from existence? The girl really knows how to torture herself. So there she is, curled up like a shrimp in her room, drowning in guilt. She's having this whole silent apology session with Chio in her head, basically confessing she can't just slap on a happy face and redecorate the house with new memories. It feels like she's cheating on the ghosts of her family. She's staring at that framed family photo, and you can just feel the ache. It's the same old story. She's convinced she's forever haunted by the past. Cue the waterworks from those big, doll-like eyes, her chest getting all tight and dramatic. And with Chio living there now, it's like she's on high alert. She's constantly pulling out this twisted happiness scale, weighing every good feeling against her old pain. Honestly, it's exhausting just watching her. Then, bam! Something jolts her awake. Her eyes snap to the clock, and her heart starts doing a drum solo. Crap. How long was I out for that little pity party? Ahan finally stirs, remembering the laundry Chio started, and cue another fresh wave of guilt. The guy literally played house elf and did everything while she was napping. Her eyes scanned the living room. It was spotless. Even the blankets were freshly washed. Seriously, when did this domestic god even have the time? Okay, so Chio's obviously out. She decides to hit the rooftop for some fresh air, hoping the wind will blow the cobwebs out of her overthinking brain. Up on the roof, she's shivering, but the crisp air is kind of helping her focus. Which is great, except she's focusing on the upcoming anniversary of her mom and Ian's death. And then, her gaze just locks onto some figure down below, and a jolt, like a full-body static shock, zaps right through her. She's thinking, no way. But this dude's dark hair, his profile, it's like a ghost, a carbon copy of her dead brother. Is she just seeing things? Up there on her little rooftop perch, Jang Ahan's heart is just breaking all over again for her lost brother, Ian. She starts imagining the man he would have become, his height, his smile, his voice, his whole future. And then her breath just hitches in her throat. The figure she was just picturing, the one who looks way too much like him, is literally standing down there. Ahan's heart is pounding like a rave beat as she tells herself to get it together. She knows these painful delusions always pop up right before the anniversary. But still, those big doll-like eyes are glued to him. Staring at this eerily familiar guy, she blinks. She's leaning over the edge, totally unsafe. And even though a part of her knows it's a desperate, pointless move, she just has to check one more time. That one word, appa, flashes in her mind like a desperate kid's wish. Meanwhile, Chio's trekking through the biting cold, muttering, seriously, Yungan. His hands are aching from clutching some steaming hot package. That girl, I swear, she has a PhD in making him worry. He's just hoping this warm offering will soothe her after he put his foot in his mouth earlier. He knows that anniversary from hell is looming. But his whole plan to console Ahan at home gets completely torched when he spots her. He sees her just trudging down the street. A part of him thinks it's sweet, like she came looking for him. But then he's like, what the hell is she wearing? It's freezing. Just as he opens his mouth to call out her name, she walks right past him, completely lost in her own world. Talk about a plot twist worthy of a romance manhwa. Chio's hand shoots out and grips her arm, his voice a sharp command. Jang Ahan. His cool, gray eyes are doing a full diagnostic on her distressed face. What happened? Are you hurt? Ahan's just gasping, totally speechless as he gently cups her face. Did you see a man nearby? A grim resolve just settles over Chio's features. Tell me who it is. I'll take you to him myself. Ahan. Her voice. She choked out the words, clinging to him like a lifeline. Appa. I saw Yiju. And get this, Chio didn't even flinch. His eyes went wide for a second. Then he just quietly admitted, I know. And with that, she just buried her face into his chest, completely coming undone, just sobbing for one more look at her brother. And as her body just shook with these waves of grief, Chio gently cupped her tear-soaked face, his touch so damn careful. Unihan. Did you know? He was cradling her, but you could practically see the war going on behind his eyes. She choked out the words, clinging to him like a lifeline. Appa. I saw Yiju. And get this, Chio didn't even flinch. His eyes went wide for a second. Then he just quietly admitted, I know. And with that, she just buried. You can keep looking for him. And I'll stay right here, he said. But don't get it twisted. Yiju isn't someone you find. He's someone you have to let go of. Oof. You could see the realization hit her like a ton of bricks, her teary eyes going wide, the brutal truth of it all. What happened? Are you hurt? Ahan's just gasping, totally speechless as he gently cups her face. Did you see a man nearby? Her feet. And weirdly, she felt instantly grounded. Thank you, Appa, she whispered, her hand completely disappearing inside his. Let's go home, he replied. And their footsteps echoed down the street. Meanwhile, her brain was short-circuiting like, why are we holding hands? Does he think I'm gonna make a run for it? Finally, she just has to check one more time. That one word, Appa, flashes in her mind like a desperate kid's wish. Hint of annoyance in those cool gray eyes. Ahan just hesitated, looking down with those big, innocent eyes of hers. "You're just asking me now? Let's go home," he replied. And their footsteps echoed down the street. Meanwhile, her brain was short-circuiting like, why are we holding hands? Does he think I'm gonna make a run for it? Finally. That reminds me. She heard a rustling sound, and watched as he pulled a totally squashed, fish-shaped pastry out of his pocket, just hung in the air between them, shimmering in the lamplight. Then Chio knelt down, so deliberately, and slipped his own familiar, way too big shoes onto. Chio turned to her, his silver hair catching the light like something out of a movie. "Oh, right. Where'd you run off to?" he asked, with this little, "all year for winter, just so you could get one of these." Her face fell a little. "I guess winter doesn't really mean anything anymore." Her eyes bugged out. "Is that bunjo pang?" It was a complete disaster, red bean paste oozing out the side. He'd clearly just jammed it in his pocket in a rush, but a soft smile touched Chio's lips as he looked at the mangled thing. "When you were a kid," he said. "You used to wait," she announced. "It's been a while." You could practically hear Chio groan on the inside. Seriously. He just watched her with this look of total exasperation, mixed with, reluctant affection. She realized the bread was still warm, and then, super hesitantly, she called his name. "Appa." Toss the sad, squished pastry. Just throw it out. But nope, she was already taking a bite, chewing like it was the best thing she'd ever eaten. "It's good." Froze. What the hell is she talking about? Was literally all he could think. And just like that, their new life kicked off. A messy situation straight out of a taboo romance manhwa that was going to take way more, she said, her voice laced with sadness. "Whatever, I'll buy you a fresh one tomorrow," Chio started, trying to get her to home, but with him crashing there, that had to change. Chio's mom tried to save the day by offering ramen, but he shut that down real quick, and ordered takeout instead. Yihan just sighed, murmuring, "Thank you, Appa," totally melting over how he was already looking out for her. Then, the delivery. Scooter screeched to a stop outside, and the driver took a sec to fix his face in the mirror. This guy had finally, "So glad we're like family," she said, her cheeks turning bright pink as she dropped the bomb. "I really, really like you, Appa." Chio's face, just, "Thanks for the delivery." He couldn't help but think, is she really living all by herself in this huge house? It's so effort than either of them bargained for. Cut to Ahan showing Chio her ridiculously empty fridge, blushing like crazy. Girl almost never ate at, and greeted him. The dad just stared, his brain completely short-circuiting. "Is something wrong?" he stammered, taking a step back. "I thought a single lady lived here?" His dad chuckled, completely oblivious. Chio just met his eyes with a smirk that screamed, "You have no idea." "Oh, honey." Ahan's eyes went wide. Asterisk. Huh? What's he just standing there for? Asterisk, she thought, totally confused. Is something wrong? Chio's dad finally managed to ask. The poor guy went beet red. "So, she does times live here?" And that's when Chio's hand shot out, pushing the door shut with a firm, decisive times click asterisk. Talk about a conversation ender. His dad just stood there blinking, completely baffled. But inside, Chio was rocking this subtle, possessive smirk, thinking, this isn't a single-occupant home anymore. Dangerous these days. Meanwhile, Yehan's dad was also worrying his ass off about her. The doorbell rang. Chio, cool as a cucumber, opened the door, made it back to Jan's place, finding himself a little more drawn to her quiet energy every single time. And as she softly murmured, completely caught off guard, blinked in surprise. Huh? No. But Chio's cool gray eyes pinned her down, a clear challenge in his gaze. Made it back to Jan's place, finding himself a little more drawn to her quiet energy every single time. And as she softly murmured, and even then, she added, only when I was completely swamped with studying. She gave him a puzzled look, wondering where this sudden third degree was coming from. His hands were methodically tying a plastic bag, but his mind was a million miles away. A soft whisper of her name on his lips, Jang Ahan. The name just slipped out. See? He'd been watching, cataloging her every move. Don't you think you've been ordering a little too much takeout recently? Ahan. And even then, she added, only when I was completely swamped with studying. She gave him a puzzled look, wondering where this sudden third degree was coming from. A faint, confident smirk played on his lips, his eyes gleaming with intent. Ahan's breath caught in her throat, a little tremor running through her. Why are you asking me this all of a sudden? She asked, a little thrown. Chio's expression hardened. Did something happen earlier? He pushed, a subtle, protective tension coiling in his shoulders. He'd noticed she was off the shift was undeniable, and Chio, with that infuriatingly knowing smirk, had murmured, "Dangerous? You bet. You never know who's just pretending to be friendly." He'd handed something back. "Thanks for worrying. Take care." Then the door clicked shut again, leaving his dad outside to have a full-on, internal meltdown. See, earlier, Chio's dad had nervously tried to explain his awkward question was just out of concern for Ahan's safety. Right, he saw right through it. His gaze, which had been simmering, went hard. "You had me worried again. By the way, from now on," when she finally found her voice, all she could manage was, "So, how do you know that?" The question hung in the air, thick with a brand new, unspoken tension. "Why?" she stammered, but she could feel it. This wasn't just about takeout. It was a fierce, primal protectiveness bubbling right under the surface, like something from a spicy romance manhwa. He tried to play it off like it was about money, but the vibe was way too intense. Then he just announced he needed the bathroom and walked away, leaving Ahan to unwrap their food and have a sudden, horrifying realization. Oh yeah, the old man was definitely cursing up a storm in his head as the full picture finally downloaded. Back inside, Ahan mumbled, No, nothing happened," as she nervously crumpled a delivery receipt in her hand. She wished, uselessly tugging at her collar. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Chio was standing under a blast of hot water, trying to cool down his thoughts about their intense collision that morning. He was practically vowing to keep his hands to himself from now on. Later, when Ahan softly thanked him for the food, he just firmly told her to go to her room. Ahan just stared, completely lost. From now on? What? He let a dramatic pause hang in the air, his resolve like stone. "Don't order delivery when you're home alone anymore." "What? Oh. Okay." She hesitated. Her eyes then fell on the receipt. Nearly 50,000 won. A heavy, sinking feeling started to pool in her gut. The reality of how much of a burden she was becoming hit her like a ton of bricks. The door creaked open as she slumped down at her desk, crushed by the thought. Living together really did double the expenses. Her phone lit up with a notification about her auntie's tuition payment, adding another layer of weight. And with more semester costs looming, it made her birthday money feel like pocket change. Just as she was spiraling, her phone buzzed, and a message popped up that sent a sudden, startling blush straight to her cheeks. Cheeks. She mumbled, just as his folks decided to pop in for the world's most awkward cameo. "Sweetie, did you eat lunch?" His mom cooed, all warm and fuzzy. His excuse was that he'd washed the dishes to help his bloated stomach. Sure. January Ahan noticed he'd been avoiding her gaze ever since their charged morning encounter. She froze mid-unwrap. Oh crap. She wasn't wearing a bra under her pajamas. A hot blush instantly flooded her cheeks. Asterisk. He probably didn't notice. Asterisk, she prayed. Ahan's face went nuclear red, a high-def replay of Chio's desperate grip flashing in her mind. What? No. Nothing happened, she squeaked out, her voice cracking like a teenager's. Then, a lifeline. Her phone buzzed, her eyes bugging out as a deposit notification lit up the screen. A serious chunk of change. It was from Mr. Jawan, complete with a string of sappy texts. Wait, what? She breathed. The guy was basically begging her to use the money, promising a steady stream of it, and signing off with, "Love you, my sweetie." Ahan typed back a quick, "Love you, too," but a sigh that heavy could have sunk a ship. My girl couldn't just sit around being a kept woman. Her hand was already flying across a ledger, logging every last cent. She had to pay this so-called kindness back. She refused to let that debt hang over her head. And just like that, Ahan decided she was getting a part-time job. Right on cue, Chio appeared, his eyes instantly locking on the nearly empty toiletries, and you could just feel the silent rage building over her, hiding her struggles. "Ahan, where are you going?" he asked, sounding genuinely thrown. Tugging her hair back, she announced, "I'm heading to a part-time job interview." Chio let out a slow breath, watching her kneeling on the floor to tie her shoes. "Geez," he muttered, just for himself. Living together really did double the expenses. Her phone lit up with a notification about her auntie's tuition payment, adding another layer of weight. And with more semester costs looming, he leaned in, closing the distance between them, his silver hair just brushing his forehead. "A part-time job?" he asked, his voice laced with surprise and a thick layer of worry. I mean, it was a little out of character for our soft-hearted girl. Ahan, looking up at him, just explained. "Yeah, there's still some time before classes start, so I figured I'd find some work." Chio's brow furrowed into a single, disapproving line. "Why so sudden? Are you short on money? Mom just sent you your allowance." Ahan dodged the question like a pro. "Well, it's not really that." She couldn't tell him she felt like she was drowning in their generosity. Admitting she felt like some pathetic charity case would just make him spiral. So, she did what she does best, plastered on a bright smile that barely reached her eyes. "I figure it's time I earn my own allowance now," she declared. But behind the smile, her gaze had this quiet, desperate fire. Chio just watched her, his expression a total blank slate as he took it all in. After a beat, he finally grunted, I see," in this low voice that said he didn't see it all. You could practically see the worried thoughts churning in his head. "Turn around." Chio's voice was a low, non-negotiable command. Ahan, startled, felt a hot blush creep up her neck as his large hand landed in her hair. Just hold still. And that touch, man. It used to be her safety blanket, but now it sent a jolt of something totally inappropriate through her. Was he still seeing the little girl he grew up with? Or the woman she was now? Chio's fingers gently wove through her hair, and you could feel this unspoken need to just pull her against his chest and never let go. "All done," he murmured, his voice a little rough, as her cheeks went pink. But he didn't move away. His hand slid down, his thumb stroking the sensitive skin of her collar. "See? Can't you just stay here?" he breathed, tugging her a fraction of an inch closer. Ahan's heart started hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Something about him was completely different. This was straight out of a spicy romance manhwa, his eyes burning with this fierce, unspoken hunger. Her wide, vulnerable eyes met his, feeling that lingering touch like a brand. His voice, his face, everything felt transformed. And maybe, just maybe, the tidal wave of her own feelings was, too. I mean, it had barely been a day since their world got turned upside down. Still, she worried. Was she just being too sensitive? Girl, please. Sensitive? Oh, honey. She was desperate. My girl Ahan was literally clinging to him, her voice all shaky as she begged him not to leave. And he just turns, giving her this dead serious look I'd never seen on him, and quietly asks her times why asterisk. She promised him the whole story, the full drama, if he'd just stay. Suddenly, the face she knew better than her own looked like a total stranger, making the air between them thick and weird. Completely tongue-tied. E-close. Chio leaned in, so close his breath ghosted against her ear, and purred. "Oh, really?" My girl went supernova, blushing so hard she probably glowed in the dark as she admitted that yeah, she'd totally splurged on them. His body heat was messing with her systems, making her heart pound like a drum solo. She just stared up at him with those big, innocent eyes, and then she squeaked out something like, "So, I should probably get going, huh?" Chio caught the look on her face, that little flicker of defeat, as if she was already bracing for whatever he was gonna say. A low chuckle rumbled in his chest before he finally gave her his permission to leave. And then, he buried his face in the crook of her neck, and his voice went ice cold as he told her to go. Go as far away as you can. Ahan just froze. Like, what the hell was that? The sudden Arctic blast in his voice completely blindsided her. She had absolutely no clue what was going on in that head of his. Then he lifted his head, and that icy glare was gone, replaced by a wicked, teasing smirk. He admitted he didn't actually have anything important to say. The little monster just wanted some company and was hoping she'd stick around to hang out with him, completely popping the balloon of tension. The same tension he'd so painstakingly inflated. Then, like he'd suddenly sprouted a pair of puppy dog ears and a wagging tail, he leaned in with this ridiculous pout. And he actually asked if she didn't feel just a little bit sorry for a poor, friendless upperclassman. Oh. He was laying it on thick, using that weaponized charm of his to totally disarm her. Ahan had to laugh to keep her heart from exploding, teasing him that his pathetic, pouty face had almost worked. Almost. The word just hung there, leaving Chio looking completely polaxed for a second. "That's my girl." Announcing she was going to be late, she promised to call him when she was done. And with a quick thanks and a breezy see ya, the door clicked shut, leaving him standing there looking like a fish out of water. Utterly, completely, speechless. So, picture this. Ahan's stomach was doing backflips, her very first real-deal interview. She was trying to zen her way through the panic, telling herself to be a badass before pushing through those big glass doors. But, of course, a few days later, she was just hunched over some sad coffee, feeling the full, crushing weight of another thanks, but no thanks. Yeah, Ahan's job hunt was basically a highlight reel of getting her soul stomped on. The ads all sang the same sweet song about no experience necessary, but the reality was a freaking nightmare. At every interview, she was basically told she wasn't it, not seasoned enough, not tough enough, just not worth the gamble. The bitter taste of failure was all she could think about. Then, her phone buzzed to life, and Chio's voice, smooth as whiskey, poured into the silence. He asked about the interview, but from her pathetic little sigh, he already had the answer. With a smirk I could practically hear through the phone, he nailed it, she bombed and told her to just get her butt home, whining like a big baby that he was bored. Her face went beet red, and Ahan shot back that it was just a string of bad luck, swearing this next one was in the bag. "Oh, for sure," he cooed, his voice practically dripping with sarcasm as he asked which fantasy job it was this time. The second she mentioned a new board game cafe, his whole vibe changed. He gently pointed out that the semester was about to kick off, nudging her to find a real gig where she could actually use that expensive degree of hers. I could hear the steel in his voice as he told her not to sweat it. He came clean, admitting he just wanted her to start college without a single damn worry, even offering to bankroll her entire existence. Ahan was so floored by this gesture, which was straight out of a romance manhwa, that she could barely squeak out a thank you before killing the call, leaving him staring at a dead screen like a chump. Staring at his phone, Chio felt that gut-punch realization that Ahan had just slammed a door in his face, one he didn't even know existed. He thought he had her all figured out. But nope, turns out that was just the highlight reel she let him see. Meanwhile, my girl Ahan is power-walking through the streets, basically holding her entire life together with sheer willpower. Like, if she even breathed wrong, her whole world would just implode. And right on cue, some random classmate pops up, shattering her concentration bubble with an invite to go scream into a microphone at karaoke. Ahan gives her polite little, "No thanks, gotta run," but you can just hear the whispers starting as she walks away. She stops dead in her tracks, and you can practically see her spine turning to steel. Keeping Chio from freaking out isn't a chore, she tells herself. It's a mission. The one she signed up for. Fist clenched, game face on. So, after a super sketchy last-minute switcheroo on the interview location, Ahan tiptoes into this so-called office. Some scary-looking dude at the desk nearly makes her bolt, but then the actual Times manager shows up. And he's all smiles and gentle vibes, noting how early she is. Ahan's shoulders finally drop from around her ears as she follows him in, her panic starting to subside. Yeah, that feeling lasted all of 5 seconds. Her relief evaporated as he led her down a narrow hall that screamed less office and more one-way trip to a sketchy motel room. The office was basically a glorified closet with a desk, and her creepometer started ticking back into the red zone. He explained the Times Real Times Cafe wasn't ready yet, but as he flashed this smile and said, "Shall we begin?" her heart started doing the cha-cha against her ribs. This was not the wholesome romance manhwa plot she was hoping for. To be fair, his voice was surprisingly smooth, so the interview started feeling less like a police interrogation and more like just a casual chat. And boom, he offers her the job. She's ecstatic, promising the moon and stars, but then she makes the fatal mistake of admitting just how broke she is, and you see that tiny little flicker in his eyes. The friendly mask slips, and he starts digging into her money problems with a little too much interest. Ahan, bless her heart, tries to spin it as being independent and just spills her tragic backstory. The guy's sympathy sours faster than milk in the sun. It turns into something slimy. He starts talking about a different times kind of job, saying her whole innocent, doe-eyed thing is a major selling point. Apparently, customers are looking for a companion to just chat with. Yeah, right. She's just standing there, floored by what he's not so subtly suggesting. He waves off her shock like it's nothing, insisting it's simple work. Mortified doesn't even cover it. She tells him where to shove his offer and turns to bolt, but he grabs her wrist. And oh, it's not just the fear that shatters her in that moment. It's the ice-cold, gut-wrenching humiliation. It's knowing he saw her desperation and decided to pounce. His greasy compliments about her body felt crushingly, horribly familiar. It left Ahan feeling small and pathetic. And just as her spirit is about to completely flatline, a shadow falls over the doorway. It's Chio. And his eyes? Pure, unadulterated Arctic fury. His voice drops to this deadly quiet rumble as he tells the guy, "Don't you dare touch my sister." And just like that, Ahan's mind flashes back to a time before that word sister was even part of their complicated vocabulary, back when they were just neighbors. Before the one explosive encounter that redrew all the lines between them, some other creep had grabbed her, and Chio had materialized out of nowhere, planting himself between them with that same feral energy, snarling about his little sister. Snapped back to the present, Ahan's brain is just short-circuiting, trying to figure out how in the hell Chio even found her. He storms into the room, silent as a predator, and locks those storm cloud eyes onto the manager with an intensity that could curdle milk. The silence is deafening. Her heart is hammering against her ribs, completely stunned. And then, another memory bubbles up from the past. A softer one. Him, gently tying her hair back, her teasing him about his clumsy fingers. The contrast between that tender moment and this raw one stabs right through him. Because if this was happening now, what other crap had she gone through when he wasn't there to play the knight in shining armor? That warm memory suddenly feels like a punch to the gut, twisted into a deep, gut-wrenching worry. A quiet, cold fury started to brew under that calm surface of his, an emotion he had perfected in silence, now peeking out from behind his ridiculously broad shoulders. Ahan felt a shiver go down her spine. The air in here was way too thick and weird for what was supposed to be a simple interview. Chio's suspicion turned to ice-cold certainty as he scanned the dumpy basement they called an office. Oh, this wasn't an interview. It was a trap. And he demanded to know what the hell was going on. The sleazebag offered this greasy little laugh, trying to play off Chio's intensity like he'd just shared a couple of innocent words with Ahan. The way her name just slid off his tongue made something inside Chio absolutely snap. His gaze turned lethal as he warned the guy to never, ever speak about his little sister so casually again. The man's voice was just dripping with condescension as he sneered, calling Chio some kind of nosy boyfriend. Leaning in toward Ahan, he started poking at her deepest fears, claiming orphans just glom on to the first person who shows them any kindness. Chio's rage was about to boil over, but Ahan slid right between them, telling him it was fine, that the creep's words were just hot air. Ahan's hand was shaking as she clutched her phone, bluffing about a recording to try and back the scumbag off. On the inside, she was coming apart, her body trembling on the floor as pure panic threatened to swallow her whole. And then, Chio's hand was there, gently covering hers. His touch was a warm, solid anchor in the storm. He looked down at her, his eyes soft and reassuring. "You're doing great." Ahan's cheeks burned, feeling the tectonic plates of their carefully built world start to shift. Ahan's quiet vibe suddenly sharpened as she told the man to get a grip. Completely unfazed by his pathetic insults, she schooled him that being an orphan doesn't automatically make you desperate for a handout. The real issue here, she announced, wasn't the crappy office, but his own disgusting, twisted way of seeing the world, leaving him gaping as she turned and walked out. Then, the adrenaline finally crashed, leaving Ahan's legs basically turning to jelly. Of course, Chio immediately offered to swoop in and carry her, but my girl, bless her flustered heart, shyly turned down the knight in shining armor routine. And then he hit her with this rare, admiring smile that could melt glaciers, praising her for being so brave. Ahan, blushing so hard she could probably cook an egg on her cheek, gave all the credit to him, admitting her courage was basically running on the fumes of his earlier, super intense words of reassurance. Then, putting two and two together, Ahan hesitantly asks how the hell he knew she was in the basement, since she'd only ever told him the name of the building. Chio, trying to play it all cool and casual, just says he got worried and came looking for her, only to find out that the board game room she mentioned was a total phantom. But a quick flashback shows us the real tea. My man was in a full-blown panic, a desperate, ice in his veins kind of hunch that dragged him downstairs, right into the scene of his worst nightmare. And Ahan, bless her, her relief that he's time safe just pours gasoline on the fire of Chio's frantic worry. He just snaps, totally laying into her for not calling, his voice wound so tight with fear it could crack. Stunned into silence, all she can do is clutch onto his jacket and whisper that his freaking out actually makes her feel safe. And just like that, poof. All his anger evaporates, replaced by this quiet, intensely serious question. "Why did you say you had no family?" Chio's voice, just dripping with disbelief, ricocheted around her skull. He couldn't understand how she could be so cold after he'd spent 10 years right by her side, thinking about how completely crushed his parents would be. In a total panic, Ahan was just begging her brain for it to be a nightmare, but her own memory shot back with a single, devastating word: no. The realization that she was never truly seen as family just ripped her apart, and the waterworks started. Fast forward a few days, and she's just sprawled on her bed, mentally kicking herself for being completely unable to get a single word out. I mean, they were living under the same roof, but a canyon-sized gap had opened up between them. They were even eating their meals separately, and she knew exactly why. She must have completely gutted him with what she'd done. Looking like a kicked puppy, Chio decided to just bail. He let out this massive sigh, clearly battling with how to even start an apology, but yeah, he had nothing. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Ahan's peaceful night was rudely interrupted by her phone doing the cha-cha on her bed. A group chat invite for her design class? Okay, color her intrigued. She tapped join, and a tiny smile crept onto her face at the flood of hellos, as plans for a Saturday night rager were being thrown around like confetti. And that's when Ahan's stomach just plummeted. Oh, right. Asterisk. Sunday asterisk. Her eyes drifted to that old photo of her, a baby-faced Chio, and his mom, her family, and bam, instant gut punch. So even though it was the memorial day for her mom and OA, Ahan somehow ended up smack in the middle of a loud-as-hell university party. Normally she'd be moping at home, but she got this weird impulse to go out, probably worried Chio would feel all awkward around her. Her brain, of course, chose that exact moment to play a highlight reel of her worst trauma, Twisted Metal, a whispered promise. Some girl finally noticed and asked if Ahan was good. She just mumbled something about not being a party person. Then this chick, Honggun, slides in, suggesting a drink. My girl, a total lightweight, hesitated. But what the hell? She took the glass. Next thing she knows, She's waking up in her own room, with a dramatic door creak, just to amplify the whole, "How the hell did I get here?" vibe. Then a gentle touch starts pulling Ahan out of her booze-fueled haze. "Huh?" she's thinking, totally out of it. "Who's there?" Then a low voice breathes her name. "Young Ahan." Cue the full-body blush as Ahan cracks open her eyes and sees Chio's tall frame looming right there. "You're the one who said I could come in," he explained, all quiet and intense. Her mind was still complete static. "I said what now?" "Okay, let's rewind 2 hours. Back when the night was still young and loud with laughter. When someone offered Ahan another drink, she waved it off, hiding her beet-red face. She was already feeling the buzz after, like, half a drink. Internally, she's complaining that this is so not like the movies. Instead of feeling all fun and flirty, she just felt drained. A killer headache blooming behind her eyes. She actually wanted to have fun, but the more she sipped, the more she felt like she was on her own little miserable island. This heavy weight just settled in her chest. She wondered if this whole funk was because of the Memorial Day tomorrow, feeling like a total idiot just sitting there awkwardly. God, she wished she could just jump into the conversation, but the music was so loud you couldn't hear yourself think. Then this sweet-looking classmate, Taewon, noticed her looking like a sad puppy. He leaned in, asking if she wanted to get some air, but she couldn't hear a damn thing over the bass. "What?" she yelled back. He just laughed, gesturing for her to come closer, but then Chio materializes and leans in, his voice a low rumble right next to her ear. He mentioned she was looking a little unsteady and quietly suggested they get out of there. But of course, the peanut gallery saw this intimate little gesture and immediately lost their minds, erupting in a chorus of squeals, asking if they were watching a new campus couple blossom right before their eyes. Mortified, Ahan frantically tried to explain she just couldn't hear him, her cheeks burning like a 5-alarm fire. Just as she was about to spontaneously combust from embarrassment, a friend cleverly clapped her hands, switching the topic to some legendary, smoking hot upperclassman. Ahan let out a breath she didn't know she was holding, but her relief got absolutely curb-stomped when the description continued. A department ace, back from his military service, and already the talk of the entire campus. A cold, dawning horror started to creep into her wide eyes, like the start of some messed-up romance manhwa, as her friend gushed on. Rumored senior, and honestly, wondering what all the hype was about. Then, a lightning bolt of, "Oh crap," shot through my girl, who gasped, "That's him, Senior Honchio." Ahan's eyes went wide when she saw him, the same broody, protective boy she grew up with. The peanut gallery next to Ahan started whispering that yeah, he was a total snack, but he also looked like he could snap you in half. And while they were all wondering who let the god of brooding in, some brave soul actually went up to Chio's table to say hi. His one-word reply sent a 5-alarm fire of panic straight through Ahan. Her face was on fire. What the hell was he doing here? A wave of pure, ice-cold dread crashed over her. She hadn't even told him she was leaving the house. She knew he'd absolutely lose his mind if he caught her here. Figuring it was better to face the music, she started to get up, but of course, her friend grabbed her arm like a vice grip. Where do you think you're going?" Totally busted, Ahan froze, stammering something brilliant like she was just getting water. Real smooth. She shot a panicked look across the room, praying to every god she could think of that Chio hadn't seen her little freakout or overheard her lame excuse. Too late. His stormy gray eyes locked onto hers, and Ahan's heart did a triple backflip into her throat. She was so caught. I mean, the only reason she even snuck out was to give him some breathing room, hoping he wasn't pissed. But when she tried to squeak out a hello, Chio just turned his back on her. Cold. Like, full-on ignored her. She was just standing there. Stunned. Did he seriously just pretend he didn't even know her? Her friend, noticing she looked like she'd seen a ghost, asked if she was sick. Ahan plastered on a smile and said she was fine, though Chio's Ice King routine left a serious sting. Meanwhile, over at the Brood Squad table, his buddies were starting to notice his dark and stormy mood. When they asked what was up, Chio just looked away and mumbled it was nothing. Sewer it was. As his friend nervously suggested they just drink, Chio let out this world-weary sigh. He slammed back a shot, stewing over how Ahan was treating him like a total stranger. He literally left the house that morning to give Times her time space, trying not to make things awkward before the memorial, and here she was, already planning her great escape without even a hi. He raked a hand through that perfect silver hair, totally frustrated. His eyes found her across the room, laughing and partying like she didn't have a care in the world, and all he could think was, is she gonna pull this crap at university too? Then, one of his boys snapped him out of it, giving him crap for drinking alone in the corner like some sad sack. Chio just mumbled an apology while they all griped about how he ghosted them after his military discharge and that they practically had to kidnap him to get him here tonight. Then the teasing started, blaming his whole dark and stormy vibe on being a crazy protective big brother. They started grilling him about his sister, and one of them finally asked the million-dollar question. Is she hot? And Chio's gaze, like a heat-seeking missile, locked right back on Ahon. A slow, possessive smirk crept onto his face as he confirmed, oh yeah, she's a knockout. Then the teasing started, blaming his whole dark and stormy vibe on being a crazy protective big brother. To her, that basically meant she was just a burden. So she kept her distance, thinking she was doing him a favor, even if it shredded her. But remembering his friends teasing him about her. Yeah, that sent a hot blush creeping up her neck. He could be all smiles and jokes with them, but give her the damn silent treatment? The raw unfairness of it all burned. She wondered if he'd ever forgive her for her stupid, helpless little sister act. A deep, painful throb started in her chest. The absolute mess of his mixed signals and her own chaotic feelings came crashing down, pulling her into this deep, angsty spiral. Seriously, this drama is straight out of a steamy romance manhwa. Darkness. Then, a fuzzy flashback hits her. She's clinging to Chio's back for dear life as he piggybacks her home. He'd told her they were there and it was time to let her down. But our girl, in her infinite drunken wisdom, stubbornly refused, muttering that she didn't want to. He just sighed, reminding her she was the one who practically begged him to come inside. So, cut to morning. Ahon wakes with a soft groan to a hand gently sweeping hair from her flushed, fever-hot face. Her dark eyes flutter open to find Chio watching her like she's the main course. Totally dazed and confused, she just breathes his name, and he purrs back. You with us now? And bam! She bolts upright, the panic setting in, frantically asking how the hell she even got here. A tidal wave of dread washes over her as she realizes last night is a complete and total blackout. So Chio starts explaining that she had pulled a drunken disappearing act from the party, scaring him half to death, before gently telling her to maybe slow down on the tequila shots next time. Chio laid out the whole knight in shining armor story of carrying her home, and Ahon's vague memory of it actually got a soft laugh out of him, which just made her more confused. He brushed it off, saying they could talk about it tomorrow. But then Chio's hand snaked out and captured hers, his stormy gray eyes locking her in place. I don't want to wait, he murmured, his fingers weaving through hers with a firm, possessive squeeze that sent a jolt right through her. Ahon. She melted into his hug, whispering, I have something to tell you. Appa. Chio flinched, clearly startled, but held her even closer. You could almost see the thought no more booze for her ever flash across his face. We haven't been able to talk for real, she continued, her cheek pressed against the solid wall of his chest. Remember the day you called me your sister for the first time? Oh honey, the bomb has been dropped. Chio's eyes went wide as her mind tumbled back to a week of non-stop rain, back to a time when she was left completely and utterly alone for days. She asks Chio if he remembers what he said when he finally burst in and found her. His own face was a mess of bruises, as he held her trembling little body and promised to save her. With this fierce, desperate look, the young Chio had sworn he would love her even more than a mother and father could, fiercely promising her that everything was going to be okay. That memory still has the power to just steal her breath. She wonders how he knew those were the exact words that would become her entire salvation. After hearing that vow, Ahon's exhausted little body just finally gave up. She admits to him that she doesn't remember much after that, just that she finally let her guard down and passed out cold. Her other memories are just broken little pieces. The sound of his ragged, desperate breathing as he carried her through the storm and the feeling of cold raindrops on her face. Then another memory slammed into her, sharp and painful. A hospital room, years ago. She remembered the sight of a little, tear-streaked Chio screaming at the staff that she was his sister. He had begged them to save her, his small voice just raw with absolute terror. A moment burned into her brain forever. Back in the present, Ahon softly admitted she remembered that day perfectly, just as Chio's hand tightened on the blanket and he started to apologize for everything that happened. He then murmured the 6 words that defined their entire lives. The day you became my little sister. His arms tightened around her, and a heavy silence fell between them, thick with the weight of everything they couldn't say. Younger sibling was just such a convenient, safe little box to put her in. Ahon understood the unspoken boundary, the invisible electric fence he kept between them. But damn, sometimes a girl couldn't help but wonder. That spot next to Chio was always so empty. Was she just a placeholder he found to fill it? Ahon understood the unspoken boundary, the invisible electric fence he kept between them. But damn, Ahon understood the unspoken boundary, the invisible electric fence he kept between them. But damn, sometimes a girl couldn't help but wonder. That spot next to Chio was always so empty. Was she just a placeholder he found to fill it? It's fine, she managed to whisper, her heart doing a drum solo against her ribs. Ahon woke up to a familiar, human-shaped furnace, having apparently toppled right into Chio's personal space. And of course, his arm was draped around her like he was claiming territory, sparking a 5-alarm fire in her cheeks. Waking up tangled like this? Awkward was the understatement of the century. She tried to execute a stealthy escape, but nope. Chio just grumbled in his sleep and pulled her in even tighter, basically vacuum sealing her against him and sucking the air right out of her lungs. Was he sleep cuddling? Her brain went into full-on panic mode, trying to calculate her next move. I mean, how are Time's actual Time's siblings supposed to handle this kind of thing? Ahan was spiraling, trapped in his embrace. While little did she know, Mr. Innocent over here was totally faking it, a sly little smirk twitching at his lips. He was thinking, asterisk. Oh, she deserves a taste of this morning after awkwardness too, asterisk. Remembering his own night of tossing and turning. But then Chio's eyes shot open for real, clocking Ahan's hand clenched in a death grip on his shirt. And oh, would you look at that, her leg was completely tangled up with his. The plot, like their limbs, was thickening. A soft thud finally jolted her fully awake. Oh my god, are you okay? She whispered, her pulse going wild. Chio just mumbled, asking if he'd woken her up. Smooth, dude, real smooth. She turned beet red, muttering some apology about trying to move. He glanced down, and you could practically see the wicked glint in his eye as his hands just so happened to land on his own thigh. Let's get ready for the memorial park, he said, slamming the brakes on the tension. And just like that, they were stepping outside. And Ahan stops dead in her tracks, staring at this ridiculously clean, white car. She's stammering, looking at Chio like, "Since when do you have a car?" He just casually opens the passenger door for her, explaining his dad left it for them. You know, for convenience. Like he just forgot to mention he had a whole-ass car. Ahan, bless her heart, starts worrying about his dad, but Chio just smirks and reminds her his mom has her own ride. He tells her to get in, but instead of, starting the car, he leans times all the way times across her, and suddenly the space between them is measured in millimeters. The air gets thick as he clicks her seatbelt. Completely flustered by the sudden invasion of her personal bubble, she squeaks out an offer to drive instead. She tries to explain that she just feels weird about it, but Chio's whole expression melts as he tells her there's no need to. Classic Mr. Han had already warned Chio not to be chauffeuring any other girls around, basically giving Ahan the official seal of approval. Little did he know, Chio was internally vowing that Ahan was the only Times passenger he'd ever have. As they pulled away, her mind was stuck on a loop, replaying his possessive words. A slow burn blush started creeping up her neck. She tried to play it cool when Chio spoke, but her heart was hammering out a confession in Morse code against her ribs. She tries to explain that she just feels weird about it, but Chio's whole expression melts as he tells her there's no need to. She tries to explain that she just feels weird about it, but Chio's whole expression melts as he tells her there's no need to. But you know damn well she was secretly pondering if having him there was the secret ingredient to a good night's sleep. As the car idled, their situation felt more complicated than any romance manhwa, with Chio lost in his own thoughts, and Ahan's blush doing all the talking for her. That familiar, heavy feeling settled in her chest the second Chio announced they were there. A slow burn blush started creeping up her neck. She tried to play it cool when Chio spoke, but her heart was hammering out a confession in Morse code against her ribs. But Ahan shot that down real quick. As their footsteps crunched on the path, she just stared at the unchanging memorial. But you know damn well she was secretly pondering if having him there was the secret ingredient to a good night's sleep. As the car idled, their situation felt more complicated than any romance manhwa, with Chio lost in his own thoughts, getting warm all over again. And then, perfect timing, Chio realizes he forgot the flowers and says he has to run back. Ahan immediately offers to go with him, but he gently shuts her down, telling her to stay put, that she doesn't need to leave. And you just hear this tiny, defeated sigh escape her lips. But you know damn well she was secretly pondering if having him there was the secret ingredient to a good night's sleep. As the car idled, their situation felt more complicated than any romance manhwa, with Chio lost in his own thoughts, and Ahan's blush doing all the talking for her. That familiar, heavy feeling settled in her chest the second Chio announced they were there. "Thanks for the ride, Chio," she mumbled, her dark hair swinging. He of course asked if she was cold. You could cut the tension with a knife. Ahan's stomach just plummeted. This woman wasn't just difficult. Her stare was a masterclass in pure. Chio just had to pick that exact moment to waltz back in, scaring the life out of her. Ahan went rigid, a full-body cringe seizing her as Chio's aunt, the Ice Queen herself, materialized beside him. Ahan, bless her heart, meekly mentioned she got into university, which only earned her a verbal slap. The aunt immediately accused her of still being a damn freeloader. Her timing was, as always, impeccable. "Have you been well, Ahan?" the aunt cooed, with all the sincerity of a rattlesnake. As the old hag kept trashing her and her father's memory, Ahan's voice, though just a pained whisper, finally cut through the crap. "Don't." The aunt actually looked shocked, like, how dare the mouse squeak? What? But Ahan's spine stiffened. "Don't you dare call him my father," she shot back, because he never was. The aunt, with a chillingly sweet smile, started talking about insurance money, a thinly veiled threat warning Ahan to watch her step. Left alone, Ahan just wanted to evaporate. Nearby, some old guy holding flowers gave the aunt a quick, weird look, a flicker of recognition that he just as quickly shook off. Then Chio returned, all apologies for the delay, and Ahan flinched before managing to ask what took him so long. He handed her hot packs, and his simple kindness sent this confusing, hot and bothered feeling through her. She'd actually been worried sick that something had happened to him. Catching the frantic look in her eyes, Chio smartly decided to give her some breathing room. Ahan felt this huge wave of relief that he didn't push it, realizing his quiet backup was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. But that's weird, Chio muttered as a bell chimed, him just standing at the gate. You could see he was dying to wrap her up and protect her, but some old pain was holding him back, a fear that getting closer would just end in a train wreck for them both. Then, footsteps. An old man piped up. Hey, what are you two doing here? That handsome kid from the big house already took off with the girl next door this morning. Chio's whole vibe shifted, his jaw tightening. Yeah, there's just something I absolutely have to check on today, realizing his quiet backup was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. But that's weird, Chio muttered as a bell chimed, him just standing at the gate, a fear that getting closer would just end in a train wreck for them both. Then, footsteps. An old man piped up. Hey, what are you two doing here? That handsome kid from the big house already took off with the girl next door this morning. Chio's whole vibe shifted, his jaw tightening. Yeah, there's just something I absolutely have to check on today, but approachable. And on big days like this, Ahan felt the ache of wanting her guardians there. She could almost feel Mrs. Han gently suggesting outfits, and hear Mr. Han's warm voice promising her she looked beautiful in absolutely anything. He'd even playfully add that she was so pretty, guys would probably refuse to graduate just for a chance to stay near her. Hearing their loving words in her head now was like a bittersweet, warm blanket. Ahan let out a soft sigh, trying to shake off the nostalgia when I've been waiting. Chio's voice just about made her jump out of her skin. Seriously, how long does it take to pick out an outfit? He teased, his tall frame suddenly way too close for comfort as he reached right over her into the wardrobe. Instantly, Ahan's face was on fire, and her heart started doing a drum solo against her ribs. Asterisk. Okay, isn't this, like, way too close? Asterisk, she thought, completely flustered. Her usual unease around Chio just cranked up to 11, becoming this thick, awkward tension you could practically choke on. Chio's gaze was completely unreadable, like some stoic male lead in a romance manhwa, and as this weird heat bloomed across her cheeks, she started fidgeting. I can't let this go on, he murmured, his voice low. What go on? What the hell does he mean by that? She wondered, her brain doing backflips trying to decode his cryptic message. Ahan was having a full-blown crisis over her casual outfit, but of course, Chio just casually mentioned she looked perfect. Then he waved off her concerns with a smirk, declaring he could make a garbage bag look good, which earned him a world-class groan from Ahan. Desperate to get off that topic, she suggested they grab lunch. But Chio hit the brakes, his whole vibe flipping to serious. Hey, there's something I needed to tell you. Ahan, however, was only half listening, getting lost in the dizzying energy of the university campus. This is so. And as this weird heat bloomed across her cheeks, she started fidgeting. I can't let this go on, he murmured, his voice low. What go on? Then he waved off her concerns with a smirk, declaring he could make a garbage bag look good, which earned him a world-class groan from Ahan. Ahan just stared up at him, completely baffled by this new, formal wall he'd put up. He then coolly explained that their unique living situation would detonate a social bomb if it ever got out, basically confirming her deepest anxieties. And look, she knew he was right, but it still felt like a cheap shot. A bitter sadness washed over her. Just then, Chio's hand gently nudged the brim of her hat, his soft promise to be careful feeling like a tiny band-aid on a gaping wound. So there it was. Chio had gently pushed Ahan to treat their college life as a clean slate, just a senior and a junior who barely knew each other. Ahan, still processing his little speech, decided screw it, she'd make her own way. She found her classroom and was scanning the seats for an escape route. Suddenly, a girl named Dun was waving her over with a huge, welcoming smile. So glad you're here, Dun chirped. Ahan, hiding under her hoodie, was fuming internally. Chio, you absolute ass, I hate your guts. Her cheeks then caught fire when the professor mentioned her ghosting the party. She quickly lied about being sick, relieved to have dodged that bullet. Dun, her new friendly neighbor, looked genuinely concerned, which kind of disarmed Ahan's bad mood. As the new class began, something inside Ahan clicked. Forget the drama. She was going to absolutely own this semester and snatch that scholarship. Out of the blue, Dun asked if Ahan had gone to Yuan Middle School, her eyes widening in surprise when Ahan nodded yes. But then Dun admitted her question wasn't just some random trip down memory lane. leaving Ahan to wonder what her new friend was getting at. Dun confessed she'd heard a little about Ahan's situation and made her promise to lean on her if college life started to feel like too much. Ahan, feeling a wave of relief, actually hoped they could become good friends. She was listening to the professor lay down the law. A quiet woe escaping her lips. Dun caught her expression, gave her a reassuring smile, and playfully whispered, "Don't worry, just trust me." Meanwhile, on the other side of the room, some guy poked his friend, Kwan Mir, who was totally spaced out. "What's got you so mesmerized?" he asked. She quickly looked away, muttering, "Nothing. Really. Just thought I saw something a little concerning." Over at the gymnasium, an instructor was tearing into CO Eugene. "Why can't you focus? You think your spot on the team is a given?" Eugene, wiping away sweat, quickly apologized. A teammate passed him a water bottle, asking him what was eating him. Eugene admitted he still hadn't found a place to live, which completely stunned his friend, who then found out he'd been crashing at a freaking sauna. The coach yelled for Park J-Man, but Eugene's mind was somewhere else entirely. He wasn't being a diva about it, but his allowance made finding a room in Seoul feel like mission impossible. The sauna worked in a pinch, but he couldn't live like that. Straightening his uniform, Eugene made a decision. He was going to text the number for that rooftop apartment listing he'd saved. The property owner texted back, confirming their son, a Korea University student who just so happened to live right next door, would show him the apartment. Elsewhere, a group of students were greeting a senior. And then there was Chio, looking down at Ahan from his perch, telling her they should just treat this whole thing as a fresh start. He gave her hat a little nudge, suggesting they just act like a regular senior and junior from now on. Totally bewildered, Ahan was like, "So, should I just not say hi to you at all?" Chio let out this soft chuckle, but you could almost hear a little ping of disappointment under it, this unspoken ache. Just then, his phone buzzed with texts from his mom, asking if he and Ahan had gotten there safely, reminding him to look after Ahan because she's so shy, and making sure they grabbed lunch together, telling her they should just treat this whole thing as a fresh start. He gave her hat a little nudge, suggesting they just act like a regular senior and junior from now on. But then another message popped up. His mom was asking him to show their old house to some potential renters, confirming he had the key. Chio let out this quiet sigh, his eyes kind of glazing over. He knew that if they actually rented out that beloved old house, Jang Yi-han would be absolutely heartbroken, and that thought weighed on him like a ton of bricks. Just then, another notification chimed, pulling him from his thoughts, deep in thought. His mom, the master of subtle meddling, had texted again, dropping a casual bomb about some Korea University student who wanted to see the place. And oh, she'd already forked over his number. Chio's eyes went wide. "Our college," he breathed out, his gaze glued to the phone as a fresh wave of drama washed over him. Just then, it vibrated, an unknown number flashing on the screen. Chio's focus sharpened. "Don't tell me this is the guy Mom was talking about for the rooftop apartment?" He swiped to accept. Miles away, Eugene, with a sheen of sweat on his brow, lifted his own phone to his ear, a shaky hello tumbling from his lips. Chio answered, a little smirk playing on his face as Eugene's surprisingly deep voice rumbled through the speaker, asking about the rooftop room. Eugene, tripping over his words a bit, asked if he could check it out that very evening. Chio took a beat, picturing the absolute chaos of his apartment, and silently decided tonight was a definite no-go. I swear, their first conversation had this weird, electric charge to it. On the phone, Chio was trying to warn the guy about the rooftop's hellish temperatures, but Eugene, totally unfazed, just quipped it was better than a sauna, a familiar ache of loneliness twisting inside him. He could practically hear the old taunts. "Kids without parents are nothing but trouble. Can't you just stay out of the way?" With a sigh that said, "Why me?" Chio caved and agreed to the evening viewing. Seriously, Chio could not get a read on this guy. First, Eugene insists tonight is perfect, then he's suddenly all apologies, getting yanked away for some judo club recruitment, swearing he'll call back in 3 days. As Chio hung up, a tiny bit of regret crept in. Judo? He thought to himself. He really should have just lied and said the room was already taken. Meanwhile, in class, the professor was droning on about group projects, but Ahan wasn't hearing a word. The girl next to her, Dun, slid a note across the desk, offering some vague support for Ahan's situation. Not having a clue how to respond to this random act of pity, Ahan just circled the word thanks. Leaning her head on her hand, Ahan realized she couldn't focus on anything. Dun's words were just echoing in her brain, leaving her to wonder what the hell she was even talking about. The whole friendly gesture felt off, offering some vague support for Ahan's situation. Not having a clue how to respond to this random act of pity, Ahan just circled the word thanks, that she was just some charity case to everyone around her. Ahan tried to shake it off, telling herself she was the one being weird for getting so bent out of shape. But that tight, tangled knot of insecurity just wouldn't come undone. As Dunn kept chatting away like they were old pals, even resting a hand on her shoulder, Ahan had to plaster on a neutral mask. She told herself that Dune's vibe wasn't exactly malicious, but that prickly feeling of being the main character in someone else's drama? Yeah, that was impossible to shake. Of course, her brain immediately swerved back into the Chio lane. So while Dune was cracking jokes about her being spaced out, my girl Ahan was busy navigating the traffic jam in her head. She was wondering why her insides always felt like a tangled pair of earbuds. Finally admitting that this complicated knot she was feeling wasn't anyone else's fault. Nope, this hot mess was a 100% homegrown product of her own heart. The second the professor dismissed class, Dune swooped in to ask Ahan if she wanted to grab a bite. Ahan served up a polite no thanks, lying that she'd already eaten, just as some other girl chirped Dune's name like he was a rock star. This new girl, Jiang, was practically vibrating with excitement to see they were in the same class. Dune, realizing the two hadn't officially met at the last rager, made the formal introductions. Jiang beamed, saying she really hoped they could all become great friends. Ahan returned the greeting, her quiet politeness a thin veil over the social anxiety still doing somersaults inside her. Jiang, bless her pushy heart, then insisted Ahan come to lunch, with another classmate eagerly agreeing. Ahan, bless her own heart, tried to squirm out of it, faking a sudden desire to go explore the campus all by her lonesome. But Jiang kept pushing, saying she'd feel just awful if Ahan ate by herself. Ahan's quiet surrender was laced with that old, familiar ache, the one where people pretend to care right before they inevitably drift away. And with that, Jiang declared Ahan was officially coming with. So there Ahan was, trudging along, feeling bloated and hyper-aware of herself. Mentally kicking her own ass for not just saying no. She stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes snagging on a huge banner for the university's famous judo team. I had no idea our school even had a judo club, Ahan murmured, her quiet surprise the only invitation Jiang needed to launch into an enthusiastic monologue. Then Jiang asked brightly, "Whoa, you have a brother? How many years apart are you?" Ahan's heart did a nosedive, realizing she'd just made it sound like Chio was her actual sibling. Her brain screamed, "Abort mission, change the subject." And then, like a scene ripped from the pages of a romance manhwa, she saw him. "Chio oppa." The words just flew out of her mouth. He turned, his head snapping toward her voice as Ahan's face caught fire. "Oh my god, I cannot believe I just called out to him." Jiang immediately pounced, asking if Ahan was tight with Chio, putting her directly under the interrogation lamp. Fluster doesn't even begin to cover it. Ahan just stammered, unable to string a single coherent thought together as her mind frantically searched for the emergency exit to this deeply cringy situation. Chio's cool, steady gaze was absolutely not helping her rising panic. Ahan rushed to explain, reminding him they'd met at that one party where he'd totally said she could speak to him casually. She was tripping over her words, realizing she'd just made it sound like Chio was her actual sibling. Her brain screamed, "Abort mission, change the subject." And then, like a scene ripped from the pages of a romance manhwa, she saw him. Chio oppa. With a faint, knowing smirk, Chio confirmed that he remembered her. You could tell he was finding her earnest little panic attack pretty damn amusing, but then he casually asked for her name again. Mortified, Ahan yanked her hat down over her burning face and quietly reintroduced herself, breathing a tiny sigh of relief when he didn't press her any further. But to Ahan's absolute soul-crushing horror, Jiang cheerfully invited Chio to join their little crew for coffee. And despite Ahan trying to give him an out with her eyes, Chio smoothly agreed, framing it as a good chance to connect with his juniors. As he offered to treat them, Jiang's whole confident vibe suddenly deflated, like she'd just realized she came on way too strong. When Ahan's new friend pointed out she didn't get any coffee, Chio smoothly explained that she can't handle her caffeine. The friend immediately shot back, "How did you know that?" catching him completely off guard. And as he stalled, totally flustered, Ahan was already filing this day away, remembering it as the moment they walked home together, and the first real sparks started to fly. Lost in the memory, Chio's hand suddenly grazed her cup, and his brain went into DEFCON 1. This is bad, he thought, leaning in so his voice was a private little shockwave just for her, quietly warning her to get that look off her face before everyone knew their business. His low, intense whisper left her completely short-circuited, as her friends sat there, oblivious, bless their hearts. So when a friend teased her about having something on her face, Ahan's cheeks basically burst into flames as she yanked her hat down. His little power play was so annoying, making her feel like the only one having a full-on meltdown. Walking alone later, a huge wave of relief washed over her, but that irritating, cringy memory just kept replaying. Flustered face lingered. She couldn't figure out how Chio stayed so damn cool, as if this kind of attention was just another Tuesday for him. Later, surrounded by the absolute chaos of the campus club fair, Ahan was stuck. A guitar club looked fun, but the boring but practical English club was great for resume padding, and she just froze, totally overwhelmed by the human stampede. An overly enthusiastic judo club recruiter spotted my girl lingering and yelled out, asking if she wanted to join. Mortified by the attention, she squeaked out a refusal. As she turned to bolt, she slammed right into a solid wall of a person. A flyer materialized in front of her face, and a voice that was way too deep for a college kid asked if she was interested. This low rumble suddenly cut right through the noise, asking if she was into judo. Startled, Ahan looked up at this absolute unit of a guy in a mascot head, and let me tell you, he filled out that uniform in all the right ways. Politely saying no, her eyes got a little stuck, the sight unexpectedly zapping her with a bittersweet memory of someone she tried not to think about. Lost in a daze, Ahan shook her head, scolding herself for getting distracted by some random hot dude. Her internal freakout was cut short when that same deep, concerned voice asked if she was okay. Startled, her gaze drifted up to the human mountain in the blue uniform, his dark eyes locked right on her. And just like that, her heart started playing drum and bass against her ribs. She was totally paralyzed, the guy's intense vibe triggering a familiar, totally unwanted feeling. A wave of dread washed over her as she realized, oh crap, it's starting again, that confusing rush she was always trying to shove down. It was like the dramatic turning point in a romance manhwa she never wanted to star in. As the world went dark for a second, Ahan's vision of her brother came crashing back. His voice, dripping with blame, echoed in her head, asking if she really thought she could run from them, sneering that they'd fallen because of her. While the memory of Chio watching her break out in a cold sweat flashed in her mind, she flinched hard in the real world. A desperate whisper escaped her. "Dad, stop it, please." Then a firm hand clamped onto her wrist, snapping her back to reality. Her brain hit the panic button as people around them started to murmur. Flustered, Ahan stammered an apology to the poor guy, insisting she'd just totally zoned out. Before he could even say anything, she took a shaky step back, needing to get the hell out of there. As Ahan bolted, the word goodbye echoed like a ghost in her troubled mind. The students she left behind were just plain confused, with one asking Co Eugene, "Dude, what was that about?" Watching her frantic escape, Eugene pulled off the ridiculous mascot head, quietly deciding he must have seriously freaked her out. Meanwhile, Ahan was running, her feet pounding the pavement as those haunting accusations bounced around in her skull that she was the one who killed them. She desperately tried to cling to the lie she'd told herself for years, that it was an accident, that she couldn't have stopped it, but that flimsy excuse was starting to shatter as she ran, a devastating truth settling deep in her heart. Flashes of twisted metal and broken glass flooded Ahan's mind. For years, she had told herself it was an accident, unavoidable accident, but that shattered family photo? Honey, it was screaming a completely different drama. If my girl hadn't thrown her little fit that day, they would still be kicking. And just like that, the gut punch of reality finally landed. It was all her fault. Meanwhile, hours are ticking by and Chio's phone was a graveyard of unanswered texts, each one a little pixel of his spiraling anxiety. He got annoyed, trying to tell himself she was just out with classmates, but that excuse was about as comforting as a wet blanket. Then, bam asterisk, a flashback hits him of Ahan's face, all flushed and looking like a damn snack, a sight you couldn't hide even under a hat. He literally scoffed at himself. The idea you could hide that kind of 5-alarm fire was just ridiculous. The clock on the wall was practically screaming, each tick winding Chio's anxiety tighter. He started wondering if his precious Jung Ahan had ever felt so completely off the grid. Just as he was getting all fired up, ready to launch a one-man search party, the front door clicks open. My man practically teleports over, his relief and worry just tumbling out of his mouth, basically asking where the hell she'd been. Chio tried to play it cool, giving her the gentle a call would have been nice lecture if she was gonna pull a disappearing act. Ahan just gave a little nod, promising to be more careful. With a quick, "I'm tired," she made a break for her room, but as she walked away, Chio felt that weird, staticky shift in the air between them. His eyes were glued to her back, then drifted down to the entryway. And get this, he finds her kneeling on the floor, meticulously arranging their shoes like some kind of Cinderella. She looked up at him with this sweet, fake-ass smile, asking if he knew that old saying about a clean entrance welcoming good fortune into the house. Chio's voice dropped, getting all low and serious as he said her name, asking straight up if something went down that day. Oh. She froze. Totally busted, clearly not expecting him to call her on her crap. She plastered on this bright, fragile smile, shaking her head and swearing that everything was peachy keen. But her happy-go-lucky act was paper-thin, and it was doing jack squat to ease the storm brewing in his eyes. He watched her drift past, his gaze loaded with things he wasn't saying. He figured it was best to play dumb, pretend he couldn't see how close she was to shattering. He sold himself the "she's just tired from school" line again and turned away. And then ***. The whole damn apartment plunged into pitch-black darkness. The sound just hung there in the dead silence. A jolt of pure adrenaline shot through Chio. He whipped around, his brain immediately screaming times Ahan asterisk. He figured the sudden power trip must have freaked her out, and his gut instinct was to go play knight in shining armor. But then, this creepy, heavy quiet settled over the place. Why was it so still? A memory clicked. Another time he'd seen her like this, a ghost of a girl, just walking away, his heart doing a nervous tap dance. He reached for her doorknob. Chio's voice was a low command. Hold on. Ahan, her back to him, just pleaded. Please, leave me alone. You could practically hear her thinking, asterisk, damn it, I can't hide a thing from him, asterisk. He knew her silence was just her way of holding it all together, and said, I know you need time alone. Ahan, she whispered back a tiny. Yeah, but my boy knew what she was really afraid of. I'm coming in, he declared, the door creaking open like a scene from a classic romance manhwa. He looked down at her, his voice going all soft and velvety, telling her she must have been so scared. And just like that, the floodgates opened, tears streaming down Ahan's face as she choked out his name. He gently cupped her cheek, like he was holding something precious, wiping a tear away as he urged her to spill what happened. She tried to shut him down, insisting he'd think she was crazy, but he sliced right through her panic, saying her name with this quiet, solid power. Do I need a reason to believe you? He asked, and damn, that absolute trust just knocked the wind right out of her. Hesitantly, she finally began, explaining that she'd seen someone who looked exactly like her brother. Just the memory of that vision was enough to make her skin crawl. Ahan's voice trembled as she confessed that in her head, she hadn't just seen him, she'd heard him speaking to her. And his words? They were filled with blame. Her voice just cracked, spilling the gut-wrenching truth she'd been carrying, how she blamed herself for her mom and brother's death, convinced she was supposed to be in that car with them. And just like that, my girl started to spiral. Seeing her completely unravel, Chio didn't hesitate, his hand locking around her wrist, his voice cutting straight through the static in her head, commanding her to breathe. Her fingers spasmed, twisting into his shirt like a lifeline as she finally confessed the real bombshell. Her terror that she'd start seeing him times as a replacement for her brother. And cue the single, dramatic tear. As it traced a path down her cheek, Chio leaned in, closing the gap until they were breathing the same air. So, he murmured, his voice a low thrum. Do I feel like your brother to you right now? And scene. If you're still here, you're an absolute legend. And I seriously appreciate the hell out of you. These videos are a labor of love, fueled by late nights and pure obsession, so knowing you're watching makes the grind worth it. If you love the ride, live for this delicious chaos, or are just an absolute fiend for a spicy romance manhwa like me, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and ring the little bell, because the next chapter of this glorious disaster is coming faster than a pair of pants on prom night.